Welcome back. Welcome back to yet another The War Within video. Today, we are going to talk about blacksmithing leveling. And it's actually really interesting because on the most recent hotfix slash build for the beta, something interesting happened for blacksmithing. Also some of the other professions. But we are at a position right now where you can mostly get blacksmithing pretty much all the way to 100 only crafting alloys. Now, whether or not that's necessarily like the cheapest way to do it, that depends, right? It depends on when you're watching this video, and there's a lot of outliers for that. But regardless, we're going to go through it, and I'll talk about what I think about it in different materials and what the potential prices could be, and also considering work orders and some of the builds. If you are interested in profession builds for this particular profession, I have also made that, and check out the links down in the description below for something like that, but also in the comments, in the pinned comments. Now, before we do get into the video, make sure that you guys drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel with all the notifications on, because if you do that, you won't miss any future videos. And it's, you know, maybe you don't want to do that if you actually care about it, but at the same time, it also helps amazingly and greatly when it comes to the channel. But let's get straight into it. So we are looking at core alloy being one of the first things that we can craft, and iron claw weight stones. Looking at these two, you can actually see that you need core alloys to be able to make the weight stones at all, but they also require crystalline powder and null stones. When you're looking at the core alloys, they require 5 echoing flux, which is a vendor material, pretty cheap actually, 1 crystalline powder, and 10 bismuth. This is without a doubt the cheapest one to make. So we're going to go ahead and craft a couple of those. Around the time that we hit 5, you'll see that we get access to 2 more things. So we're going to go ahead and learn those 2. And this is as much a walkthrough, but also my opinion on how certain systems are put together. You can see now that we can actually use some of the bismuth we have and some of the core alloys that we've just crafted. So if you're interested in that, then that's, you know, a great idea. If you bought your materials by yourself, then this is probably still the same situation. You could buy the cheapest materials that you can find depending on rank and make this. And again, you could also get more out of this, maybe selling it on the auction house, but if not in the auction house, then you could send it over to maybe a disenchanting alt that you have. But we're going to go ahead and craft a couple of these, because they do give +2 skill and they are very cheap to make. We learn a couple more things here. We learn another breastplate. Now, this breastplate currently costs one bismuth and 2 core alloys. Considering that these sabatons cost 10, it's very likely that this is not intended, because obviously this is a beta testing environment when you're watching this video and at the time of recording this. So whenever you see this, if it's when the actual game is live, this is probably not going to be the case. I'd imagine that it's going to be between 10 and 15. It's going to be more than boots, because that's regularly the case when it comes to crafted gear on the bigger pieces. But anyway, we also have some of the profession equipment. We have access to it already at this point. It is not really considered that much cheaper than this, because this is only 1 core alloy and 10 bismuth. This actually requires crystalline powder, which is likely to be more expensive than the lower quality ranks of bismuth. So we're going to continue crafting these sabatons, and they're going to continue being the best. Now, we do reach 15 here, and at this point, the breastplate is going to give us 2 points. Which means that because we get 2 points from this, it's not worth it to craft this anymore, because you would have to craft 2 to be able to get one of these. So this would have to be over 25 bismuth to have it not be worth it. So we're going to go ahead and craft here. You can see that we have the alloy still being a good option over here. But these are still pretty pricey compared to these gear pieces. So you don't want to get into the alloy too early. Now, when we get up to 20 here, you'll notice that we actually lose the ability to get 2 points out of it. But we get a lot more that we can get to craft here. You'll see that we get access to some weapon craft. These cost iron claw ore, which are also not super hard to get. But again, depending on prices, you might want to do armor pieces over weapon pieces. But again, depending on your prices, that's a choice that you would have to make. I would say that probably going for the great build is a good idea. And again, this is not going to be one. This is very likely to be similar to like the 10 to 20 range. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of these until they stop giving us +2 points. Now we learned quite a lot more here for the professional equipment. Blacksmithing actually gets access to pretty much all of the green versions of profession gear that they can craft very early on, unlike some other professions. Here you can see we have some gauntlets that we get a +2 from. We also have a helmet, and then we have a defender, which is a shield. In most cases, the gauntlets are probably going to be the cheapest next to like something like sabatons or wrists. So best case scenario, you're probably crafting gauntlets. We're going to go ahead do that. As you can see, sanctified alloys are actually still good. We get a couple more pieces here, shoulders and leg plates. These are unlikely to be cheaper, but now that we're at the point where these give +2, we're gonna go ahead and craft these instead. Actually looks like the shoulders do cost 1 less, but I'm mostly basing this on what they've done in previous expansions with the total amount of materials for each gear craft, so just keep that in mind. Go ahead, continue. We're almost at 50 here, almost halfway, which does mean that we're at a point where we're about to learn the last thing that we get from a trainer. And at that point, we're on our own. We have to buy our own recipes. We have to get it from Specializations, but that is not an issue. So now you can see here, we can actually make forged frameworks, and these do give us some points. And we also have some adjustable frameworks and tempered, but these are guaranteed to give us at least 1 point. We also have sanctified alloy being an option to making 2 of these. Again, you can only really make these at rank 1, and because they're so expensive, I highly doubt they're worth it at this point. So we're going to go ahead and make forged frameworks until they at least turn yellow, and then we'll take another look. Should be good, should be good. Around 55 is where you'll see a change. You'll see that the other 2 frameworks actually become green here. The forged framework still stays in our wonderful range of a guaranteed plus skill. So we're going to continue crafting another 5. Good stuff, good stuff. Hopefully this makes sense as a leveling guide. I wanted to go through this for everyone so you had a perspective of what to potentially expect when it comes to leveling each profession, so you don't have to do estimated guesswork when the actual expansion launches. Now, look here. We are looking at forged frameworks, and we are looking at sanctified alloys. In this case, you have 2 options, and they're still both yellow. Forged frameworks are cheaper, so we're going to go ahead and do this. I'll go ahead and craft some more forged frameworks. At this point, you are going to have to move into specializations, and there's a couple different ways to level up, and I can actually show you guys. You can see here that the gear, weapons, all of these epic craft, these will be able to take you to 100. No issues at all. They are work order related because of the sparks, but they will be able to take you to 100. Now, depending on the profession build that you're interested in or the profession build that you want to go for, you might not be interested in gear crafting. But most people that use blacksmithing actually want to do gear crafting, and at that point, you will have no issues at all leveling this profession. The other option is you also have some profession gear. This won't take you all the way, but it'll take you pretty close, and you have some other embellished gear. And, you know, not too shabby, not too shabby, but now you're at the point where the forged frameworks are green, which means at this point you have to make a decision, right? You have your sanctified alloys, which you can still get further into, or as I talked about before, you'll have to go into one of these lovely specialization trees. And Ever-Burning Forge can actually also give you some points. So once you actually just learn that profession tree, you don't even have to put any points into it. You get this as an option for something that you can make. These are on a 2-hour cooldown to start, so you can only get 1 point, but we might as well take it. This might be a little more depending on when you actually level the profession, when the expansion launches, but we might as well take that. And now we have sanctified alloys to still go by. So we're going to go ahead and craft a couple of more of these. At this point, you'll have to go into either weaponsmithing or armor smithing or means of production. In my case, for what I will use blacksmithing for, I will go for alloy crafting. Now, alloy crafting is going to be on the right side of this tree. Obviously, depending on your build, you might not want to go there first. But again, this is not the video for recommending certain spec builds and all that. There is a link to that video down in the description below. If you're interested in something like that. So we're going to go ahead and just put some points into here to show you guys what I mean. So sanctified alloys are still fine. If you end up putting this many points into that spec tree, you'll see that you can actually make these at quality 2. Depending on your, your profession gear, you might be able to get a little higher, but you can't guarantee it with a ton of concentration at rank 3. But at this point, you'll probably be able to get a little bit back if you're trying to get, get yourself a little return on what you use to level your profession. Additionally, you will also be able to make one of the blacksmithing accessories, which is good. You can make this for yourself, or you could potentially find someone else to make it. That's up to you. But this will also give you points. So if you're at a point or in a build that this makes sense for, then you can make that for yourself for some points. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to continue crafting these alloys. Now, the interesting part about this with the recent build is that they gave you an option to not have, or they're not forcing you to just do gear crafting, which I think is nice. It's kind of been like that for a lot of the beta period for a lot of professions, where you've been locked into needing certain types of builds to be able to get up to 100 at a reasonable pace. But again, I want to clarify, like I also did in some of the previous videos for leveling guides, getting to 100 skill in your profession is not always something that you need, because just to draw a comparison, tailoring, if you do a cloth farming build, you don't need any skill at all. You only need knowledge points, and you kind of do need a little bit of skill, because you want to get to a point where you can actually, you want to get to a point where you can unlock 3 of your profession trees, but you can do that at 65 skill. So you don't need to be anywhere close to to 100, right? Because that build, not only does cloth, like all the cloth that you farm off of humanoids, they're not impacted by skill in any way. They're only impacted by the amount of knowledge points that you have in your profession. So keep that in mind, because it's a little interesting to think about, because yeah, it is more skill points, but not every single market needs a lot of skill points immediately. It also kind of depends on what your primary focus is for your profession build. So, but again, we're just continuously crafting some sanctified alloys. This might get very expensive, obviously, depending on material prices for what this costs to craft, but you'll see here that we're about to hit 90. And once we hit 90, we can get, we get pretty close to what you could say is the maxed out version of blacksmithing. And at this point, you can see that you'll see profession equipment, you'll see embellished gear, you'll see weapons, you'll see armor still giving +3. So you have absolutely 0 issues there. But because this is green, right, the amount of alloys that you actually have to craft to get up all the way to 100 is it's pretty high, especially if you get kind of unlucky, because it can take anywhere from 1 craft to 5, maybe 6 crafts to get points. But you'll see here that we're inching our way up there. So again, whether you go for a material like intermediate crafted material build, you can spruce that up a little bit with ever burning forge, because that's an extra point, and then maybe in your profession equipment. But the absolute easiest way to get up to 100 in blacksmithing is going for a gear crafting build, and it doesn't even come close, right? But that does require you to interact with the work order system, and if you're not a big fan of the work order system, then that's kind of where the issue is. So I'm glad that Blizzard listened to some of the feedback and gave us some more options for professions like blacksmithing. But as you can see, we're still at a green here at 95, and we're going to hit this over the time that I, continue yapping. But this is basically the end of the video. There's not much else to blacksmithing when it comes to leveling the profession. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video and it made sense. And if you did watch all the way to this point, you should type. What should you type down in the comments below? I should think of something. You should type bag clip. You should type bag clip down in the comments below if you watched all the way to this point in the video. If you did, I appreciate you guys very much. And as always, I'll see you on the next one.